Hello, good morning. Welcome to another exciting time to talk about business. It's a new business week and my name is Biden Ukem and it's Business 360. In Business 360 this morning, we'll look at some of the biggest talking points and the analysis that comes with it. We'll talk about interesting features in the world of business and look at the market in three cases. We'll look at gold price as a new high this morning and also extract a very fine detail from the European stories and the African stories. But that will be immediately after a call shot when we'll give you the details of this game. In Business 360 today, the analysis builds based on different directives. But we'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll talk about business even further.
Looking for at least a 30% discount. So you put all that together, we're going to be shopping for bargains this weekend. We may not buy them in the run-up to Christmas at higher prices.
OK, that's interesting. So even the volumes come in decent, it may just be that we're pulling forward our Christmas for shopping. And the cost cuts.
Rather than buy things on top. So that means a lot of spending could be pulled forward from Christmas. Now, another survey found that
we continue to press and expect for additional Americans will be released as well. And we will not stop working until every hostage is returned to their loved ones. As I said when I spoke about this deal on Friday, this has been the product of a lot of hard work and weeks of personal engagement for me and my team. We have been in close contact with the leaders of Qatar, Egypt, and Israel, speaking with each one of them repeatedly over the past few weeks to help secure this deal. We spoke again yesterday with the Emir of Netanyahu, and we will continue to remain personally engaged as well. For weeks, I've been advocating the pause in the fighting for two purposes: to increase the assistance getting into the Gaza civilians who need help, and to facilitate release of hostages. And we know that innocent children in Gaza are suffering greatly as well, because this war that Hamas has unleashed has such consequences. Thousands have been killed, and from the earliest days of this crisis, I've worked closely with President Sisi of Egypt, the Israeli government, King Abdullah of Jordan, and leaders throughout the region to expand the delivery of critical humanitarian assistance to help innocent Palestinians in need who are not part of Hamas. Under this deal, fighting in Gaza has now been paused for 3 days. Over that time, 58 hostages have been released, including the Thai, Filipino, and Russian nationals. Dozens of families have been reunited. And we worked urgently to take advantage of the pause to surge aid into Gaza. We've moved approximately 200 aid trucks into Gaza each day, loaded with food, water, medicine, fuel, and cooking gas. More is needed, but this deal is delivering life-saving results. Critically needed aid is going in, and hostages are coming out. And this deal is structured so that it can be extended, to keep building on these results. That's my goal, that's our goal, to keep this pause going beyond tomorrow so that we can continue to see more hostages come out and surge more humanitarian relief into those who are in need in Gaza. We've seen this is the day-by-day approach, hour-by-hour process. Nothing is guaranteed, and nothing is being taken for granted. But the proof that this is working and worth pursuing further is in every smile and every grateful tear we see on the faces of those families who are finally getting back together again. We continue to press and expect for additional Americans will be released as well. And we will not stop working until every hostage is returned to their loved ones. As I said when I spoke about this deal on Friday, this has been the product of a lot of hard work and weeks of personal engagement for me and my team. We have been in close contact with the leaders of Qatar, Egypt, and Israel, speaking with each one of them repeatedly over the past few weeks to help secure this deal. We spoke again yesterday with the Emir of Qatar, Netanyahu, and we will continue to remain personally engaged to see that this deal is fully implemented and work to extend the deal as well. For weeks, I've been advocating a pause in the fighting for two purposes: to increase the assistance getting into the Gaza civilians who need help, and to facilitate release of hostages. And we know that innocent children in Gaza are suffering greatly as well, because this war that Hamas has unleashed has such consequences. Thousands have been killed, and from the earliest days of this crisis, I've worked closely with President Sisi of Egypt, the Israeli government, King Abdullah of Jordan, and leaders throughout the region to expand the delivery of critical humanitarian assistance to help innocent Palestinians in need who are not part of Hamas. Under this
Welcome back. It is Business 360, and my name is Blyden Okem. President Joe Biden was talking about the release hostages from Palestinian hostages, and also from an Israeli point of view is that conversation. But we look at what the standings would be from a Palestinian point of view. Here 17 hostages were released. Meanwhile, Palestinians in the West Bank welcome released prisoners. More than 3 dozen Palestinian prisoners have returned home in the occupied West Bank as part of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. Let's also find out details regarding this.
شعور يعني طبعا منقوص متقلب بين.
Meanwhile, EU member states have revised the EU directive on long-term residence. This directive outlines the conditions governing EU long-term residence status acquisition for third country nationals. Third country nationals are citizens from economically developing nations outside the European Union, such as Ecuador, El Salvador, Nigeria, and Egypt. According to the directive, to acquire EU long-term resident status, third country nationals have to legally and continuously reside in a member state for at least 5 years. This status exists alongside National Long-Term Resident Scheme. Some of the shortcomings that the update tries to remedy are that EU long-term resident status is underused, that the conditions under which applicants may acquire the status are too complex, and that there are numerous barriers to exercising intra-EU mobility rights. Among the 23 million third country nationals legally residing in the EU, over 10 million held long-term or permanent residence permits. Now in Africa. Trade between Kenya and Japan has so far in 2023 yielded the East African country a remarkable 18.7 billion shilling in revenue, as recorded by the Kenyan Revenue Authority KRA. Humphrey Wantaga, the KRA's Commissioner General, noted that the amount demonstrates significant growth in the partnership between Kenya and Japan. KRA commits to fostering a robust relationship with Japan. Now in Nigeria. The National Oil Spills Detection and Response Agency, NOSTRA, on Sunday confirmed the loss of 3,000 barrels of crude oil in the November 15 oil spill in Egini Floating Production Storage and Offloading, FPSO, the vessel of Total Energies. The NOSTRA Director General, Mr. Idris Musa, says that the cleanup of the spill was still ongoing. He added that Nostra and Total Energies did not spare any effort in tackling the pollution to minimize its environmental impacts. The FPSO, located 130 kilometers off the Atlantic coastline from Port Harcourt, has a capacity to produce 200,000 barrels of crude daily and can store 2.3 million barrels on board. Still in Nigeria. In the span of 9 months, at least 12 state governments in Nigeria have received 2.1 billion naira fines imposed on individuals who violated traffic rules. The disclosure came from the Open Nigerian States, a website supported by Budget IT that acts as a repository for government budget data. Lagos State, Nigeria's commercial hub, registered the highest number of traffic offenders, leading to states to receive 1.9 billion naira during the review period. On the Central Bank's report. Nigeria's Central Bank, CBN, under the leadership of the new governor, Olayemi Kadosi, has pledged to restore price stability and steady the country's battered currency by implementing tighter monetary policies. The Apex Bank has also instructed banks to boost their capital to support the expansion of the economy. Meanwhile, CBN has been under immediate pressure to extract and address excess liquidity in the banking system and confront inflation. Meanwhile, amid the push to woo foreign direct investments and investors and their portfolio, the Nigerian Export-Import Bank has said that investors in Nigeria earned about 30% return on their investments. The Executive Director of Business Development, Nexim, Stella Okotete, disclosed this recently in Abuja while playing host to the Mexican ambassador to Nigeria, Alfredo Miranda. She called for collaboration between the country and Mexico to expand access to Nigerian goods to the Mexican markets. Now to recent MBS reports. To combat rising inflation in the country Nigeria, companies increased the salaries of their staff members by 18.35% to 29.45 trillion naira in the first 6 months of 2023. This is based on data from the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's Gross Domestic Product report. Compensation of employees, which is the total remuneration in cash or in kind, payable by employers to employees for the work done, rose from 24.88 trillion naira as of the first half of 2022 to 29.45 trillion naira as of the first half of 2023. This increase coincides with worsening economic conditions in the country, with workers faced with higher prices and cost of living. Commenting on the compensation of employees in the period under review, the NBS said, in the first quarter and second quarter of 2023, the compensation of employees grew by 15.08% and 19.41% respectively in real terms year on year. And now we'll go on a short break. When we return, it would be Business 360 looking at economic statistics all around the world and the markets. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It is Business 360, and my name is Blyden Kim. Now looking at global economic standings all around the world, beginning with UK. The UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak discussed the government's autumn statements, the outlook for inflation and fears of looming post-election spending as it's set to squeeze the public services. Government spending in the UK right now is at a very high level, historically, Sunak said during an interview. Let's find out more.
Minister Jeremy Hunt framed the autumn statement as a pathway to growth, and yet the OBR trimmed their forecast for next year in 2025. Do you think the OBR is being too conservative?
Look, the story of the UK is an economy that has got real momentum. So I've been Prime Minister for just over a year. During that time, we've halved inflation, as I said we would do. We've known now that the UK economy has recovered faster from the pandemic than pretty much any other major European economy. And over the long term, we're still forecast to outperform major European economies. But crucially, business investment has grown faster than any other G7 economy over the last few years. And I think ultimately, if you want to drive growth and productivity in an economy, you need business businesses to be investing, we have more momentum for business investment here than anywhere else. So look, I feel actually very positive about the long-term growth outlook for the UK.
So do you think the OBR is actually going to have to revise them upwards? Are you confident that the numbers will come?
Meanwhile, the European Central Bank is now at a point where it can cause and assess the impact of its tightening, according to President Christine Lagarde. We have already done a lot, Lagarde said at the Bundesbank Youth event in Frankfurt. Let's hear from the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde.
The battle is not over, and we're certainly not declaring victory. But if you look at the progress that has been made, and if you look back to the highest reading of inflation that we had a year ago in October, in the euro area, not specifically in Germany, but in the euro area, it was 10.6. We're now down to 2.9. And I'm talking here about what we call headline inflation, which includes all the items that people purchase, for their day-to-day life. So I think this is progress. We have started that fight against inflation that my colleague and friend Mr. Nagel calls a nasty beast. So we started the battle. We have deployed a lot of ammunition because we have increased interest rates by 450 basis points. By the way, don't be intimidated by basis points. It sounds terribly, terribly scientific. You take out a zero and you put...
That is it regarding the ECB and their tightening. And now to the commodity market. Let's begin with the energy market as oil falls, as OPEC Plus meeting looms. WTI crude futures fell below $75 per barrel today, extending a recent decline, as investors are keenly awaiting the OPEC Plus meeting later this week, where markets remain split on whether the group would reduce output further in 2024. Oil prices came under pressure late last week as OPEC Plus postponed a ministerial meeting to November 30th amid a dispute over output and their quotas for African producers. Signs of robust supplies, particularly from non-OPEC countries, have also been weighing on crude prices, with US crude inventories continuing to increase more than anticipated. Meanwhile, the International Energy Agency said it still expects a slight surplus in global oil markets next year, despite potential extension of OPEC Plus supply cuts well into 2024. Let's quickly move to the market itself and see what the prices are looking at the energy market first and the agricultural market, and afterwards the metal market. The energy market. The energy market has given different outlook this morning, that of slight mixed fortune but hugely on the decline. Crude oil, which is US crude, is downward by 0.547 points, a negative 0.72% decline, $74 per barrel, while Brent crude, which is Nigeria's price benchmark, it has a price of $80 per barrel, dropping by 0.441 points, a negative 0.55%. While natural gas, gasoline, heating oil are a little here, a little there, but quite concerning, natural gas has dropped by a negative 4.72 points. Now to agricultural market, where the prices of soybeans are and wheat. Soybeans is getting this morning 2.25 points and wheat price is upward by 1.22 points, quite different from the energy market. It seems to be slightly positive this morning. $1,383 per bushel is the price of soybeans, and wheat price $549 per bushel. Palm oil gaining just 1 point this morning, 3,891 Malaysian ringgit per ton. Meanwhile, gold strengthened above $2,000 an ounce, its highest level in over 6 months, and extending the November gain to about 1.5%. The yellow metal has been benefiting from a general dollar weakness amid prospects interest rates in the U.S. Prospects are saying interest rates in the U.S. have already peaked. Gold is an attractive investment during periods of political and economic uncertainty. Half of the gold consumption in the world is in jewelry, 40% in investment and 10% in industry. The biggest producers of gold are China, Australia, United States, South Africa, Russia, Peru, and Indonesia. And the biggest consumers of gold jewelry are India, China, United States, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and UAE. Let's move to the market quickly and see what the prices for gold are this morning. The metal market. The price for gold is upward this morning by 12.42 points, and current price is $2,014 per ounce, gaining 0.62%, and silver price $24.765 US dollar per ounce, gaining 0.464 points and 1.91% on the gaining. Copper price is downward slightly at 3.77 US dollar per pound, dropping 0.0115 points, a negative 0.3% drop, and steel price gaining 7 points. Quickly, let's talk about the metals this morning. The FX updates. The FX market. Top currency gainers are New Zealand dollar at a 0.3% gain and Australian dollar 0.25% upward. In addition, there was a slight change in the euro at a 0.04% and British pound 0.04%, dollar index a negative 0.08%, and Japanese yen a 0.24% gain. Quickly, let's move to the market, the euro against the US dollar, and afterwards we'll look at Naira's perspective. The euro against the US dollar stands at 1.094 point mark. Upward movement, not hugely anyway, but 0.07% gain. The pound against the US dollar at 1.26 point mark, gaining away from the 1.25 point mark we saw yesterday. And now Naira's perspective in the market. Naira's perspective indicates the price level at 804 Naira equaling $1 US, a slight gain of 0.11 points in the morning market, and the euro against the Naira 878 Naira equaling €1. The pound against the Naira is at 1,010 Naira to the pound, a gain of 3.29 points for the pound over the Naira. And quickly to the Paro market and what the prices are. 1,160 Naira equals $1 at the buying rate, and selling rate 1,148 Naira. The pounds to Naira 1,443 Naira equals £1 at the buying rate, and selling rate 1,420 Naira. The euro to Naira, the buying rate is 1,250 Naira to the euro, and selling rate 1,231 Naira. And to the digital coin, talking about Bitcoin and the rest of them. Cryptocurrency market, it's on the fall this morning. 188 point drop for Bitcoin this morning. $37,427 US is the price of Bitcoin, a negative 0.5% decline. Ether also dropping 24.7 points this morning at a negative 1.19% decline. $2,050 US is the price of Ether. Well, talking about the markets and the directions in the market, here we draw the curtain in today's edition of Business 360. Thank you for being a part of it. My name is Blyden Ukem. We return tomorrow for further talking points. Thank you again.